Hello, and welcome to a video I meant to make a very long time ago, but simply had other things to do. And plus, I wanted to make sure this method was actually robust, and it is. This is a follow-up video to one of my old, but lovable videos titled, I Changed My PS3 Controller Driver for My PC. Now, that video was half a joke and half serious. My mindset at the time making that was, it's the year 2020. People don't have PS3s anymore. We have PlayStation 4s now, which in their controllers work on your PC out of the box. But the amount of attention that video got, ranging from comments to views, told me otherwise. You guys just can't let these go, can you? That's the same controller I used in the last video, and I'm going to be doing something differently this time, because one of the most common questions I got from that video was, how do I make Shibari use more than one controller? Short answer, you can't, because it binds them both to the same device. This one you should be able to use more than one. I have not tested that though, but I have another controller I can use to test. And it's been unconfigured, so this tool is called DSHID Mini. And it stands for, I'm assuming, DualShock Human Interface Device. Game controllers show up as human interface devices on Windows, by the way. And just a couple of warnings here. This will not work on Windows XP, Vista, 7, 8, and 8.1. Only 10 and 11. And plus, those previous are no longer supported. And Windows 10 is going to no longer be supported here real soon, so keep that in mind. No fake, aftermarket, or third-party, non-Sony controllers. This only works with the real thing. But if you experience problems with this, it's probably because those are not supported in this software. I recently upgraded to Windows 11, so I uninstalled this driver in case it would cause problems on the upgrade process. So I'm gonna reinstall everything. Plus, I'm pretty sure I'm overdue for an update. This is made by the same creator as SCP Toolkit and Shibari. So and there's guides on the same website, which I'll link in the description below, which will show you how to uninstall Shibari and uninstall SCP Toolkit if you still use it, so on and so forth. Now, first things first is to not manually pair with the Windows built-in device pairing and Bluetooth. This will make it not work anymore. At least that's what this says. Alright, so this is version 2.xx. The version I used before was actually version 1, so it hasn't updated now. Please pay attention here. Version 1 only works with certain versions of the software we're going to be using here. Version 2 does not work with what works with version 1, if that makes sense. Because version 2 is kind of a rewrite. First things first, if you want Bluetooth support, install Bluetooth PS3, is what I like to call it. If you don't plan to use wireless connection in your controller, you can skip this step entirely. But I want Bluetooth, so I'm going to install this. Yeah, this version I had is definitely a bit out of date. I did not have this specific version, so I might actually get better stuff here. Oh, look at that. Provides ARM64 support. Go ahead and download this. I'm on an 64-bit system, so I'm obviously going to get the 64-bit version. Alright, you more than likely will get this warning. If you do, don't worry about it. It just basically means that this is an unsigned program, or unrecognized. Just click More Info right there, and run anyway. Except the EULA. No one reads these anyway. And it's pretty much common sense. Install. Well, you need user account control enabled, by the way. I don't know how to enable that if you have it disabled. MSI files, for some reason, have a bit of a hard time running. There we go. Probably got a black screen there for a little bit. Finish. And then it must restart. So I'm actually going to go ahead and restart. So I'll be right back. Alright. That's installed, computer's restarted, and this is right where we left off. Again, if you're not planning to use wireless support for your controller, you don't have to install that piece of software. However, you do need this though, regardless of what you're going to do. There's a guide on how to install, update, and uninstall. Yeah, right here. This release is not compatible with DSHMC version 1.xx. So if you have version 1 of that, you need to update to version 2. So let's go ahead and grab the zip file, You download a zip. You want to open the zip in archive opener you want. I'm using 7-zip. I already have an older version on here for some reason, so I'm just going to go ahead and extract everything here into this directory, but you can extract these into any directory on your computer you want. Just remember where you put it, because you'll be accessing this pretty often. So put that in there, replace. There we go. That's installed. Yes, download the attached zip file and extract the archive. Doesn't matter where you go. Doesn't matter where it goes. Where you put it. Know your architecture. If you're on 64-bit, you want to navigate to that. If you're on x86-bit, you want to navigate to that, and that's after you extract it. It is these two folders here that came in the zip file. So if you're on x86, you want to use the x86 folder. If you're on 64, you want to use the 64-bit folder. I know Windows 10 comes in a 32-bit, so make sure you know which architecture you're on. Windows 11 only comes in 64-bit, so you can just go ahead and use the 64-bit if you're on Windows 11. Simple. Very simple. Alright, so it says to navigate to DSHID Mini, which I did right here. See, x64 DSHID Mini. So we're in that directory, and now it says right-click on the INF file and press install. If you're not sure what an INF file is, it is a Windows driver file. It doesn't actually contain the driver. The actual driver itself is these two cat files and the DLL. The INF tells Windows where to put these to use them, basically. So you right-click on that and click install. If you get this, it's asking if you want to install this driver from this publisher. I always like to keep this unchecked regardless, just to have a bit more security. Nefarius Software Solutions. Every single driver and software you install will be under that category, Nefarious Software Solutions, every single time. So if you have problems, look for that name, and then press install. And not sure why that came up here. And you get the operation completed successfully. So that driver is installed, but we're not done yet. There's another one we need to right-click on, which is the IG filter. Now, I'm not entirely sure what the IG filter does, but apparently it's required, so let's go ahead and do it. There. Now that's installed. So we're still not done. Still more. Alright, now connect the controller via USB. This will automatically pair it to your Windows Bluetooth host if you have a working Bluetooth at the time of plugging it in. Now, it's not compatible with every single Bluetooth dongle out there. Keep that in mind. But my system has one that is verified is working, so I know this works. And I've used it before. So I'm just reinstalling it to show you guys. So now you connect your controller. As you can see the lights, that means it's plugged in. Now with that open, you want to navigate back to this place where you extracted those files and click on the only exe in this directory, which is the DSHMC. And run it as administrator. It doesn't say that, but run it as administrator to get more accessibility on it. And here it is. The PlayStation Registered Trademark 3 controller. And there it is. So you run as administrator, change settings. You don't have to run it as administrator, but you have to if you want to change the settings. And it's not required to keep the utility running. For the driver to function, it's only if you want to observe battery or change settings. So here's a guide for version 1 if you want to use version 1 for whatever reason. So, but we're not going to worry about that. If you want to update, simply follow the same steps of installation. Now here's a removal guide and driver store explorer, which is a very useful utility. But we're not going to uninstall it. This basically tells you how to uninstall it, how to troubleshoot. So theoretically, we are done. And look at this. Now I'm going to unplug my controller. Look what happens. There it is. It is now hooked up via Bluetooth. As you can tell, the lights are on, and I can still control it. Now, battery status is... I don't remember where that's at. Oh, it's right here, but apparently it's not working. But right now, it's hooked up to Bluetooth. If you decide to go with the Bluetooth method, I must remind you that you will not be able to control your PS3 anymore with the controller, because it's now paired to your computer's Bluetooth instead of the PS3's. So I'm going to show you how you can reconnect this back to your PS3. So first things first, make sure your PS3 is actually on. Wait for it to fully boot up. There's my animated theme. Now, you want to take the USB cable that you use to charge your controllers with, plug it into the PS3's USB port, grab your controller, plug that in, and it'll start flashing. Like so. Now, if you start pushing buttons, it's not doing anything. That's because after it's connected, you need to press the PS button on it. Now the light will turn into that. And it'll still flash if the controller needs to charge more. Oh, yep, there it is. You can now control your PS3 with the controller again. Well, that's all you have to do to get it working again. So now when you unplug it, it'll flash. Just focus, I swear. It will turn solid. And now you can control the PlayStation again wirelessly. See? Nothing you do here is going to be permanent. Nothing is written to the PS3 controller's firmware. Everything's all controlled by the drivers on your computer. So no matter how many times you use the Bluetooth, you can always repair it back to the PS3 easily. So you have nothing to fear. Now, we're still not quite done. If you want to have the most functionality out of this, such as being able to customize the LED lights, which you just can't change their color, but you can change how they're on, or completely disable them. Sorry, butting in here because I explained all this terribly the first time. So I'm actually going to go in here to actually explain it properly for you. There are several different modes you can use for your controller. I'm going to go in order from the top. So SDF, which is for PCSX2. You select the mode you want and press Apply Changes. Give it a second. There we go. And now it's as a SDF. Now it's an SDF device, and I can explain to you what that means using the article we've been using before, which is SDF claims to have the best compatibility with the PCSX2 PlayStation 2 emulator. It's a single device with force feedback. The controller is presented as one almost direct input compatible HID device with pressure sensitive features exposed as additional sliders, with vibration support. And it has 100% compatibility with all unmodified versions of PCSX2 with the LilyPad plugin. Okay, now that I know this is actually working now, because I had some problems off camera, which I had to fix. On Windows 11, they changed the location of devices and printers. When you click on it, it takes you here, which is annoying. You had to go on more. You had to click on View More Devices and scroll down to More Devices and Printer Settings to get back to this legacy window. I'm going to show you what this shows up as. Right now it shows up as PlayStation R3 controller. And when you open it, you can see how everything here is working. And you have sliders. I'm using the D-pad, and notice how the two sliders are going up. And as you can see, they are pressure sensitive, which I actually didn't know that. Then you have Z rotation as well. So you have the Z-axis and Z rotation, X, Y, and then the two sliders, which is up on the D-pad and right. Hi, Fable. And of course, all the buttons work like they would normally. So that's what the controller looks like in this mode. Now I can show you how it looks like in the actual emulator itself. Although this is the actual nightly build, which is a bit different than what you would expect from the latest version. It's a lot more updated, and it actually supports Xinput, direct input, mouse and keyboard, controller multi-tap, but also supports the SDL input source, which is what we have this set as. So you want to make sure enable SDL input source. It also supports DualShock 4 as well, which is cool. And then you want to go to controller port 1, DualShock 2, click on automatic mapping, and click on the SDL0 PS3 controller. And you're good to go. I'm going to apply and OK. I'm going to start out the BIOS. I can show you it works. It works exactly the way you expect a PS2 controller to work, basically. Except the analog buttons, because I think this does something else. Yeah. This works exactly the way you expect, which is really nice. Mode number 2 in this list is the GPJ, which stands for Generic Direct Input. You just click on that and press Apply Changes. Now please wait a little bit for it to restart. If it doesn't restart, it just hangs there, wait till the error comes up, click OK, unplug your controller, and plug it back in. If you don't do that, it's going to break it. That's what happened to me off camera. So anyway, now it's set to Generic Direct Input, and here's what it's good for. Use this mode with X360 CE or to experiment with older games. This stands for Gamepad plus Joystick Mode. The controller is presented as two separate HID devices, a traditional gamepad featuring the same set of features like a common Xbox 360 controller and a joystick, only handling the pressure axes. This mode guarantees the best potential compatibility with legacy solutions purely relying on direct input and works around the mentioned axis limit. And the rumble can be controlled by force feedback. So now, let me show you what this shows up as in this mode. These two separate devices, but they're under the same name and they would use the same device. So this one is the axes, it looks like. There's a dial and slider option. Okay, their slider is which is L1, and the dial is R2. So this isn't what the direct input test window would look like, but this seems to be, but according to this, seems to be the best method to work for a direct input. Now the other device, again, is only partially emulated. This is the X is the slider in this case, and the dial is square, circle is Z rotation, triangle is Y rotation. I'm trying to figure out the other ones. Alright, so the D-pad controls the Y-axis, and the up D-pad controls the X-axis. So it's simulating an analog stick. Z-axis is the down button, and X-axis is the left button. So this is, now listen, the game would use both of these devices all at once to emulate the best possible compatibility for direct input. I don't have anything to test this on though. The next mode on the list is SXS, which is for Steam and RPCS3, the PlayStation 3 emulator. You want to use this mode if you want to use Steam input. It stands for 6-axis mode. The driver emulates the behavior of the official Sony 6-axis driver shipped with PlayStation Now's application. Use this mode to ensure compatibility with Steam, the PlayStation Now application for PC, obviously, or the RPCS3 PlayStation 3 emulator. Alright, if you have Steam running in the background, you can actually access the settings from the Steam's tray icon. So you right-click on it, go to Settings, and then go to Controller, General Controller Settings. Detecting controllers, PS3 controllers. Now because it shows up as a PlayStation 3 controller, you want to turn on PlayStation configuration support. And you're good to go. And that's how you use Steam input on this. This device will always show up as the same name, but this is what this looks like. It works pretty much the same as just a regular USB controller, basically. Alright, this is RPCS3, and I have not been able to actually get this to work in this mode. But I can try it again. I want to go to Configuration, Pads. Go to Handlers, DualShock 3. Hey, this one, okay, it works this time. Set the handler to DualShock 3 and set it to DS3 pad number 1, save. This is actually using the native DualShock 3 components on a PlayStation 3 emulator. So that means when you launch it, emulation is still not perfect, as you can tell, but it's pretty darn good. The fact it's able to emulate this is doing good. I'm not sure why that's there, though. As you can see, everything would work exactly the way you expect on the PS3. There's me. I do not dare to sign in on this thing. Don't dare. So I recommend you try not to try either. But yeah, this will work exactly the way you would expect a PS3 controller to work on a regular PS3. Next mode on the list is my favorite mode, which is DS for Windows. Sometimes the controller has a hard time switching to this, so set to DS for Windows, click Apply Changes. Okay, it actually transferred over correctly. So as you can see, DS for Windows is already working for me because I've already have this pre-configured. If you use DS for Windows mode with this, and you have DS for Windows on, then I recommend going to Steam's settings again, controller, general controller settings, and disable PlayStation configuration support completely. So leave it like this, go back, and Steam won't touch it. Now the reason why I recommend this mode is because this is the best of both worlds for both modern and older games that use controllers. Because DS for Windows can emulate a DualShock 4, therefore in modern games that have it will give you the correct button prompts for your controller, and it can use Xinput, which has wider compatibility for games. When you first open DS for Windows, you'll get this. You'll get this little window here. So step 1, install Vigium Bus Driver. Do that. It will prompt you to restart, so restart if it asks you. And number 2, only applies if you're on Windows 7, but DSHID MIDI, I keep saying MIDI, DSHID Mini does not work or is not supported on Windows 7, so you should skip that step anyway. An optional step 4, which I recommend you do, is to install Hid Hide. I call it Hid Hide. This will allow you to hide a certain controller if you have double input. Now, I don't know what fake input is. I don't recommend you get that because it allows compatibility with games with anti-cheat methods in it, because sometimes DS for Windows will trigger that. But there's an alternative method I can show you to use that. I cannot, for the life of me, get this one part of the video right. So, take 5. After you completely install the DS for Windows prerequisites, including installing Hid Hide Client, because that will be important, and I'll show you later, you can create 2 profiles, and I recommend you do that. So I already did, as you can see here. You just create a profile, name it whatever you want. Up here, I can't do that because I'm editing one. Go to Other, set this to DualShock 4. But for the share button by default, for whatever freaking reason, is bound to share, obviously. The share button, from my knowledge, is a PlayStation-specific feature and has no purpose on PC. So in this case, select on the PS3 controller would be the share button. I recommend you rebind the share button to touchpad click. And you do that by clicking on the share button in this diagram here and click on touchpad click. Now it actually behaves more like a select button because most games will use the touchpad button as an actual select button. So this provides better compatibility and eliminates the need to remap the select button in game, because this will always be the correct button. This is the case for LEGO Star Wars: The Skywalker Saga. Since it uses that button, it will actually function like it's supposed to on here. Then save it, create another profile, and set this to Xbox 360, and then save it. And the reason for this is because if you have DS for Windows minimized to the taskbar like so here, you can right-click on it, go to Controller 1, and you can change your input from profile right here. So right now I'm using the DualShock 4 emulation. I click on Xinput and change it to Xinput emulation. Simple. You also have complete control how the LEDs are displayed on the controller like so. Notice how I have light 1 and 4 on only. You want to use these sliders, but they're very sensitive. But if you click on the side, you can raise it up by 1 instead of trying to drag it and try to be ever so precise about your drag to raise it up 1. I find it to be easier just to click on the side to raise it up by 1 number per click, basically. But I can show you in this little preview window, and I wish I could bring this up for those sliders, but you can't. If you set everything to black, you get a blinking LED light for number 1. And if you raise it up far enough, the red, you get it solid, and keep going, to get number 2 or number 3 or number 4. And that's up to your preference too. There's more advanced modes as well. If you raise up the color blue all the way up to 255, you'll get different results with the red slider. So now you get a blinking LED light, but if you raise up the red, you get 1, 2, 3, and 4 instead of or. So you can have all 4 of these LED lights on instead of having them each individual. But if you're using Bluetooth, this will drain more battery faster. There's even a more advanced mode if you change the green and blue all the way up, and then use these. I'm going to use these 2 arrows because it's sensitive. Now the red slider from 0 to 15 will give you a different result. Anything higher than 15 won't give you anything different. So you can raise this up to 1, number 1 solid, number 2 solid, number 1 and 2, number 3, number 1 and 3, number 2 and 3, number 1, 2, and 3, number 4, number 1 and 4, number 2 and 4, number 1, 2, and 4, number 3 and 4, number 1, 3, and 4, number 2, 3, and 4, and 1, 2, 3, and 4. And again, that's up to your preference. You choose how you want your LEDs to be represented. Right now I have 1 and 4 to represent the PS4 mode, and if I change it to Xinput, LED lights 2 and 3 turn on. So that way I know which mode I am by just simply looking at the LED lights. And you can do that too if you wanted to, or you can have the same LED lights for both profiles. It's up to you. If you want your LED lights to represent the battery at all times, you can enable color by battery percentage, and you get 2 different sets of sliders. So obviously when you set it to full, you want to represent, whatever you want, like number 4 in this case. And then empty, always keep red at 0. That way, when your battery is draining or being charged, the LED lights will change depending on the percentage of the battery. If you don't want to do that, but still want a way to check your battery level, if you go to the Special Actions tab, I already created one, but you can set up a check battery action. So you create a new action, change the action to check battery life, and over here on the left, you can pick what buttons to press to activate the action. So I actually need to go back and turn this on. There. And then again, you want 0% keep red at 0, because that's how you get the blinking LED light. And you can set the 100% to however you want. So right now, so if I hold down L1, R1, and triangle, I get the battery level. In this case, number 4 means it's fully charged. If this was on number 1, that means I'll need to plug it in. You can also represent it the other way too. Right now, if you set it to that pink color, and when you hold down L1, R1, and triangle, you now get the battery level as represented by these LED lights. If all 4 are on, the battery is fully charged. And as the battery drains, 4, 3, and 2 will be turning off, and 1 will eventually be solid and blinking. So that would mean that you need to plug it in. That's basically how you use DS for Windows. There's a lot more you can do if you read the documentation on both for DSHID Mini and DS for Windows. The last but not least mode is the simple Xinput mode. This mode would act like Shibari would. It emulates an Xbox 360 controller without any third-party things. So that means you set it to this mode, this will work out of the box, even with Steam input. And here's what that shows up as. It shows up as one device, and it works the way you would expect. I recommend using this mode if you want to use games with anti-cheat protection, because there's no third-party software involved. It's just a driver. So don't quote me on that, but you theoretically should be fine if you're in this mode. A bit of a bonus software here. There's a program called Glossy, and what it basically does, it allows you to use Steam input system-wide. So if you really like Steam input and want to use this with it with full compatibility, you'll be able to use Glossy to have it system-wide. I'm not sure how it works. I have no idea to use this, as I personally use DS for Windows. So you pick and choose what mode you want and stick with it. Right there. See, don't do anything. If you get this error message, click it, click OK, disconnect. It's going to connect to Bluetooth. To disconnect from Bluetooth, you click this little sad face right here, by the way. Then for the USB, you plug it back in. And now it's back to DS4 Windows. And Bluetooth would be the same way. So yeah, there's a whole lot of functionality to this. I think this is the ultimate PC controller at this point. So, well, that's just my opinion. Now I suppose you're all wondering, what about 2 controllers? Well, just to demonstrate you how well this works, I'm going to unplug my red one, have it use Bluetooth, then I'm going to plug in the black one. This one's already been configured. Look at that. They show up as 2 different devices, and they're both using DS4 Windows, and take a look at this. They both show up as 2 different as well. I think the key means this one's a master. I'm not sure. Oh, this one has hide access. I'm going to show you how this works using an old program called Anti-Micro. As you can see here, it shows up as 2 different devices. I'm going to wiggle the black one. As you can see, the one that's highlighting in red means this is the one that's controlling. So you can see all these buttons are flashing when I push buttons here. Now if I change to this one, they're not flashing anymore. So that means if I were to wiggle this one, it would affect this one. So as you can see in Anti-Micro, they're showing up as 2 separate devices, which means you can use more than one controller now. Now this is a newer fork of Anti-Micro called Anti-Micro X. It's not the latest version, but this one has some problems, as you can see. It's not detecting any of the controllers. I'm not sure why, so I don't recommend you use that one.
Are you still recording?
Yes. Bluetooth mode seems to be a bit glitchy, so I recommend having one controller wired or having them both wired. Because I can't get the other controller to show up now. It's not even showing up at all now. Alright, so support seems to be iffy. Okay, fixed it. You can have one on Bluetooth and the rest on wired, because that seems to work. But anyway, what I'm trying to show you is a situation where double input is a problem and I can't seem to recreate it. So if you do experience double input, you want to go here. It'll be like this by default. It'll filter out disconnected, leave that checked, but gaming devices only. Now these are the ones that are actually being emulated. When I first did this, I didn't explain the hide client very well. And I was trying to create a situation to where double input was an issue, but I couldn't recreate it very well. So double input happens when you play a game. It's usually an old game that can only use one controller. And if there's more than one controller that is listed specifically in this window, it's going to use all of them all at the same time. Therefore, double input. But you can't hide that device entirely, because this device that's highlighted right now is what DS4 Windows uses to emulate the wireless controller, which is the PS4 controller, or the Xbox controller, depending on what you have displayed. So to fix that, you would bring up the hide client. Now, in applications, you want to add DS4 Windows.exe into this application, because that means it will hide the device except for what's listed here. Then if you go to devices, you'll get this window. Uncheck gaming devices only, and you want to hide the one that I have highlighted, not the one that shows up here, because this is what DS4 Windows is emulating. That's the right controller. You want it to use that one. So if you check this one and then enable device hiding, notice how the DS3 HID device is now completely disappeared. But if I go to properties here, the controller still works like it should. And after you do that, you're good to go. You can now play both old and modern games without worrying about the double input issue. Now what I recommend you do after you do that, if you have DS4 Windows already running, is to go bring it up, press stop in the bottom right corner here, and then press start. That way you'll refresh this and you'll get a key here. If you get a key, it means hide access. If you get the key after you restart it, you have set it up correctly. You're good to go. That's the benefit of the hide client, and I recommend you get it. It's to fix the double input issue like I explained before. Alright, so that was a lot of content to cover, I understand. Everything I was following will be linked in the description below. You'll find more information on that website as well as DS4 Windows. And again, you don't have to install everything you see here. Some modes for the driver are specific to software. So you pick and choose which one you want to use and stick with it. So with that being said, I'll see you in the next video. See you then. My gosh, that was a pain in the butt to make.